In the past, the United States has always responded to challenge with innovation and with out-of-the-box thinking. It seems that now, relative to the crisis on our southern border, we resort more to whining and finger-pointing than problem-solving. That's a tragic response, and it's one that gets us nowhere. So, if you will, I'd like to make a proposal that I think at least is a solution worth thinking about. We're faced with two facts. First of all, because of the economic boom, the United States needs workers. Secondly, at this moment, thousands of Hondurans are on their way to the United States in an attempt to illegally enter the country. How can these two facts be reconciled in a just way, a way that recognizes, honors, and respects those who have, over the years, at great personal expense and sacrifice, earned the right to enter the country and passed the tests and taken the oaths whereby they become citizens? And two, that recognizes the humanity and in many cases the desperate needs of those who seek asylum in a country that, because of its laws and the Constitution upon which those laws are founded, has become the world's brightest beacon of hope and opportunity. The answer clearly requires creative thinking. Between the two extreme opposites, that of turning those people back by force, which, though perfectly within the rights of both the United States and the other sovereign nations through which they're traveling illegally, might not be seen as only inhumane, but could very well result in violence and death. And on the other hand, that of embracing them en masse without vetting, without weeding out the criminal element among them, without requiring them to understand and agree to abide by the laws by which we, as a civilization, stand or fall. That would be both irresponsible and unfair to the tax-paying citizens who would have to provide for their health, their education, and their material needs. Here's my suggestion. All across the United States are cities and towns in economic decline because they were abandoned years ago by the industries that brought them into being, and they've sort of been on life support ever since, with a slowly declining population as the younger people obviously and understandably moved away for better opportunities.
While some rural towns are booming, many are struggling to maintain their very existence. Those towns in trouble are seeing their economies falter and their populations dwindle on the path to becoming a relic of the past.
So what if, as a test case, one of these cities agreed to become home to these Honduran immigrants? And there, in exchange for temporary sanctuary, for the basic human needs, for food, for clothing, for medical attention, even education, provided by NGOs, volunteers, churches, and underwritten by existing grants and community development, to work to renovate that city's infrastructure, to build, to rebuild, to renew, to revitalize, to clean up, to make that city viable again, to breathe life into it. They would agree, furthermore, to faithfully attend civics classes conducted in Spanish and English classes whereby they can become fluent in the language in which government, education, and commerce are generally conducted in the United States, and in which the documents that underwrite the freedoms and privileges they will enjoy here are written. Refugees of all ages, in order to form a more perfect union, as Lincoln said, would be required to attend U.S. history classes. This is very important. It will not only equip them to better understand their rights, but the responsibilities that come with them. The protection of those rights, as well as the security of the citizens of the city and of the refugee population, and the oversight of the enforcement of its laws, may be regulated by a joint force of existing police together with recruits democratically selected by the refugees. This may be their first exercise in democracy. This would, for the most part, ensure that the refugees would hold one another accountable to the terms of this agreement and in compliance with the law. or risk deportation, which is the consequence of failure to abide by the contract. During their tenure in the city, the refugees would be required to fulfill all the obligations incumbent upon anyone seeking citizenship in the United States. Until that time, their status would be that of guest workers, not citizens. As such, certain reasonable restrictions would be placed upon their freedoms, especially that of travel, at least until the vetting process has been completed. While in their host cities, their appeals for asylum will be heard and judged, as the population will have to be monitored to ensure compliance with the terms of the contract. The city, for its part, will have to educate its populace to have realistic expectations about the immigrants, about their language, their culture, their history, and their religion. The contract will require them to create an atmosphere that inspires innovation, instructs in the principles of commerce, encourages business building, and engenders self-reliance. Toward that end, it will make vacant and abandoned buildings available free of charge for a fixed period for the establishment of tax-paying, rent-paying businesses, manufacturing, and services. No doubt some among them will elect to return to Honduras when the situation there becomes tenable, and they should be encouraged to do so. In fact, it's to be hoped that they will take the seeds of real democracy back with them and that they will take root there. Those who choose to remain and become U.S. citizens will, at the conclusion of this citizenship process, be free to test their talents and resourcefulness anywhere in the country in a workforce that's badly in need of them. At that time, should the host city wish to continue with the program, the original refugees will be replaced by new arrivals who also consent to the contract. This, I think, is a reasonable and rational path to citizenship for those who choose to become contributing members to society and who are willing to work and to assimilate toward that end. And assimilation is not a bad word. The opposite is tribalism, which is another word for division. But it's only unity that will ensure America's future strength, security, and prosperity. Furthermore, this model goes a long way toward ensuring the basic security parameters. By sequestering the refugee population for an extended period of time, during which, as is always the case, the bad apples will either reveal themselves or be revealed by others, and can be deported. It would be inhumane to attempt to establish here, under the banner of multiculturalism, neighborhoods or enclaves that do nothing but mimic the conditions in Honduras and from which these people are fleeing. Instead, like millions of immigrants before them, they need to adopt the culture, the same way they adopt our laws, and to become threads in the tapestry of American life and not just patches sewn onto it at random. The aim of the program that I'm proposing is not simply to sign up new citizens, but it's to give them a real-life, hands-on education in how to become Americans. So that's it. This is, I think, at least as reasonable a proposal as any I've heard, and I submit it for your consideration. And I hope that those who are responsible for making decisions at this critical and dangerous juncture will have the opportunity to see this and at least consider this, because it's certainly as viable an option as the two I laid out at the beginning of this presentation. I thank you for taking the time to listen, and I thank you for your consideration and your thoughts. And I wish you God bless.